Hi, Jelena. Welcome everyone to the Authentic as
Hello.
Fuck podcast. We're doing a new format now. Instead of coaching members at Night Owl Nation, what I'm going to be doing is we're going to have a discussion with Jelena, which is a continuation of this discussion that we've been having every week. And basically, the goal of the podcast is this. There are certain things that we learn throughout Night Owl Nation, like, for example, for storytelling, in order to find the best way to teach storytelling, right? And that's how we come up with the curriculum. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to teach people how to make carousels. The kind of carousels that I make, which is gonna make people say, I never thought of it that way. And I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to teach people how to do that, because so many people are struggling with it, right? And in the last few weeks, me and Jelena, we've tried designing carousels together, and we learned a lot of things, right? So what we want to do is every week we're going to work on an idea. We're going to turn it into a carousel. You're going to ask me a bunch of questions, and then we're going to look at the process of how I make this carousel and try to reverse engineer it so that we can figure out how we can design our curriculum at Night Owl Nation to teach people how to do this. So you're kind of getting a behind the scene look of how we design our program at Night Owl Nation, basically. How I would want to do it, Jelena, is starting out maybe something like this. Let's just keep doing a bunch of carousels every week, right? Every week we'll pick one topic and we'll make a carousel with a myth truth sandwich. Now, I want to spend maybe the first 45 minutes talking through the idea. And then maybe we can spend 15 minutes kind of like writing it into a carousel, or like at least having some sort of a myth truth sandwich there that we know we can turn into a carousel. And then after that, we can spend an hour, 2 hours extra actually creating the carousel. And what I'm going to do is the first hour of it, the 45 minutes to 15 minutes, I want to publish it on our podcast so everyone can see it. But if you want to see the rest of it, where we actually design the carousel, where we actually turn it into a carousel, which then we'll post on social media as like a final product. To see that process will be for members only. It'll be behind the paywall where only the members of Night Owl Nation can see that. And then we'll start it out like that and see how it works, and then we can change it if it doesn't work. But for now, I think that's a good plan. What do you think?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I'm here for the meat shoot sandwich, so I don't know what else will this bring up. But this is definitely where I see that most people, including myself, we need help. So when we are talking about it, it's kind of simple, but when we need to narrow it down, I kind of find myself lost in those ideas, and I don't know how to like execute it, so I give up. And
Okay, so this
I
week's
guess
assignment was to make a myth truth sandwich. So do you have one that you want to work on? Or do you have one
yes,
that you're struggling with?
I have few of them. Okay, this one is the first open, so the myth is that most people think that if they put an effort in something, the results will appear.
Okay.
So my inspiration for this was once I watched a Big Brother reality show. So one guy, they had some swimming pool in front of their, I don't know, place. But the water was cold. So he wanted to heat the water, and he went to the kitchen and brought some pot with hot water and tried to fill in the swimming pool to heat the water. And people that actually saw him were like, And like the whole people that were watching the show, are you crazy? How are you going to heat the water with one pot, like the whole swimming pool? So he was putting an effort into something, but there were no results. So the truth is that
Well, if he did it
yeah,
long enough, it would have worked.
I don't think so, because that water also like cooled down.
I know, but if he did it long enough, it will work. It's just, you know what I mean? Maybe it'll take forever, but at some point it'll work.
I mean, okay, in theory, two parallel lines are coming together in like
So
infidelity, or however you call
what
it.
we're trying
So
to do is we're trying to figure out. So remember, like what the thing that we're always trying to do is figure out a conventional truth versus a universal truth, right? Conventional truth is the myth, and universal truth
yeah.
is the example. Okay. Conventional truth means it's not really true. We believe it's true because that's what we were told our whole life. And then the universal truth is the truth that we believe, not because somebody told it to us, but because we've experienced it. Like we all know it to be true, right? So what's the conventional truth here? That with enough effort that you can overcome anything?
Yeah,
Is that a conventional truth? I
I
mean,
think so.
it doesn't seem like it to me, because everybody knows that they with enough effort they can have a six-pack abs. Everybody knows with enough effort they can make a lot of money, but people still don't put in the effort. So is that really a conventional truth?
I Can we have another type of conventional truth, that just because it's possible doesn't mean that, I don't know. Um, it looks like this is different. I mean, you can imagine. I guess that if people say that everything is achievable if you put enough effort, this is one thing. Maybe it's achievable to heat the water of the swimming pool, but not in the way that he was doing it.
So what would be the conventional truth in that case? Like, so what's something that people say and that people believe?
I don't know, just do it, and the results will come. I don't know the conventional, like the expression, if you're searching for that.
Yeah, but I guess the problem there is because you're using a universal truth as the conventional truth. That's I think where I'm getting hung up. Because it is true
Okay.
that if you do like if you do it
The
long
the
enough,
the
if you do put in the work, it will work. That is universally true, and we know it to be true. But for
Okay.
some reason, we don't believe it.
Yeah, but I think this is different, because it's not just about the effort, it's about what kind of effort you're doing. If you don't think about your actions, then you will repeat over and over again the same mistakes.
I know,
So,
but don't you think more people are worried about that than actually just doing it the wrong way? Because when I go on social media, I don't see anybody posting every day, even if it's the wrong way. What I see people doing is they do it for a little bit and they stop because they think they're doing it the wrong way. So I don't
okay,
know if
maybe we're targeting different problems, because in terms of relationships, for example, you see people changing relationships. They are being very active in trying to fulfill their relationship needs. but they're ending up in the same relationship over and over again. So, or
But you think that's why? You think that is? You think that's because they believe that with enough effort that they can, you know, they can
they're
see
trying
results?
hard. They're trying hard, and they are doing things the same. I would say so in many
Got it.
cases.
Okay, so
If
then
we
then maybe that's
imagine,
different. Yeah. So
if
yeah, give me another example.
mm, I can give you examples in relationships. One story that also kind of is similar. There is a story from a book. A guy was trying to cut the tree with an axe, but the axe wasn't sharp, and he was sweating and trying to do it, and he was putting a lot of effort. And one guy was passing by, and he asked him like, but why don't you like sharpen your axe? I
Mhm.
mean, you're so tired. And he said, I don't have time. So
I don't know if that's like see, I know what you mean, but I don't know if that's a conventional truth because I just feel like it's something that humans do naturally, even though they were never told that. Because you know how like what you're telling me is like what Einstein said about doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity.
mhm,
That's what people do, right? That person
yeah.
who's in the toxic relationship, she's not actually putting in the effort to change. What she's doing is she's doing the same thing over and over and over, repeating it over again. The person who's cutting down they're not actually trying to put in the effort to change or trying to make an effort. They're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, right? It's the definition of insanity.
Okay.
But I
Well,
don't feel like I don't think the reason why people are doing that is because they were told to do that. I think people are doing that because people are just stupid. Like, why do you think we keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, knowing that it's not working? Is it because of a conventional truth?
I mean, I cannot but say the simple answer to that. Sometimes we have beliefs about how things function and we don't question them. So if I know that man should know what to do in that specific situation, if he's a man, he would know. It means that I'm like holding those beliefs, and I'm not letting myself to be open for a different way of, I don't know, functioning. So this can be one reason.
I guess what I'm trying to say is this, right? The only way this can work is if we're trying to break a conventional truth, which is a myth.
Okay.
And I feel like what you're telling me is not necessarily a myth. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a truth. The fact that people do stupid shit over and over, expecting a different result, that's not a myth. It's a truth. It's what people do.
Okay. So do you want to hear another example?
Yeah. What you're saying there. So maybe this is one good test. Like, what is something? So, what's the wrong advice being given on that right now out in the world? Because like the only reason why I'm doing this is because I'm trying to tell people to think for themselves, right? Instead of
Mm-hmm.
just believing everything you hear, actually think for yourself, right?
Yes.
So, what do you think is happening? Why do people do that? Is it because something they're being told?
Mm, I guess that we're taught not to question things and just to accept them as they are. And they are, I mean, we are taught to take something as it is and not to question it. So that's why something, maybe we have a question there, and maybe this guy had a question, is it possible to hit it like this? But he didn't like trust that question. He would like put that somewhere behind and do what has
I
been
know, but
told.
that's not what most people would do. Here's another example that we here's another problem that a lot of problems I see. People think something is a conventional truth
Okay.
and say, hey, you know how everybody's like thinks this, like a myth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or something like that. But the reality is nobody's thinking like that. Nobody's thinking like
Mm-hmm.
that guy who's putting the water in the bucket. Only he's thinking like that. He's actually the minority. Most people wouldn't do what he did.
Yeah,
Do you understand what I mean? So it's not a myth. It
I
can't be a myth
agree. I
if
agree.
most people are not doing it.
I thought to so my idea when I took this example was because it's vivid. You can imagine a guy doing that.
Mhm.
And this is a metaphor for every other situation when we are like that. So this is me doing the same thing, repeating the same relationship over and over again. And if I zoom out from my experience, if this guy looks stupid, then my behavior as well looks stupid.
So so what's the right thing to do, you think?
To think about your actions, to do it, and to have like a place to think about it and consider if this is something valid or not for you, to question it.
Okay. But you don't think that's people are already saying that? I guess the problem for me is that the myth is not strong enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's going around saying you just got to put in the effort and your relationship will be fixed. I don't think anybody's saying that. I actually people are saying the opposite. They're saying you have to know when to give up. If you're in a toxic relationship, like you're not going to be able to fix it. You have to know when to get out. So do you understand what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It doesn't. It's I can't turn into a myth truth sandwich when the myth isn't real,
Okay.
and it's only a myth if it's everyone saying it. It's kind of like
But if
when the lady says, "You know how everybody thinks yoga is hard." So, oh, yoga is hard. That's a myth,
okay,
but it's not really a myth because nobody thinks yoga is hard.
okay,
Actually, the myth is that
can it?
yoga is easy. That's the myth.
Okay, okay. So what if in my example, just for the
Mhm.
sake of learning, I see that it's not exact example that we want to achieve, but in this context, if we consider this as a myth, so people think that if they put enough effort, anything can work out. So the truth is,
I guess that's
if you
where
don't
what I
know
would
when
question.
to
Is
give
that
up.
really a myth? Do people
Okay.
really think that if they put enough effort, everything will work out? Do people really believe that? And if
I can hear that people say that everything is possible. You can be whatever you want. Just you need to give
well,
yourself.
that's a different thing. Like people saying, "Oh, anything is possible." I guess that's a different myth, right?
Okay.
So people, if you say anything is
Okay.
possible, like then obviously, is it possible for you to play in the NBA? That's not possible. So that debunks that myth.
Okay. Okay. So the myth is not there, so we cannot use this. Okay.
A good place to look at it is like this. For me, all the carousels that I came up with,
Mm-hmm.
it's all based on personal lessons that I've learned personally. I don't just randomly try to come up with the myth and try to debunk it for no reason. I only debunk the myth that I used to believe in, that I debunked, and I learned as a lesson in my own life. And the reason why is because I don't, unless you've actually experienced it yourself, it's going to be hard for you to find that thing. And it's because I experienced it, because I know that I followed this myth and I just believed it until this thing happened. And then I realized that that's actually wrong. Right? So I had to change, right? So that's what makes it work. So if you try to like randomly find a myth truth, it's not really going to work, because then it's going to feel forced. It's going to feel like, what do you mean? Like, nobody thinks like that. Nobody believes this. Nobody thinks that's a myth. That's how it becomes. So if you really want to do it right, you have to think of something. Okay, what's something that you believe to be true because that's what you were told your whole life? But then it turned out to be false. What's something that you see all the therapists out there, all the experts out there saying that's wrong, that you know is wrong, but everyone believes to be true because everyone's saying it, right? And the perfect example that I gave was, everyone thinks chasing money is not going to make you happy. Like, that's real myth. Like, if I say, hey, chasing money is not going to make you happy, just do what you love. If you're doing something just for the money, it's not going to make you happy, right? It's not going to be fun. It's what people say, right? It's really a myth. It's what people really believe. But if I say, what about when you're playing Monopoly? Are you having fun? Are you happy when you're playing Monopoly? Well, you're literally just buying houses, upgrading to building, buying streets, accumulating wealth, and seeing your bank account bank account grow. That's literally what you're doing when you're playing that game. And you're having fun, and it makes you happy.
Okay.
So the truth is, making money can be fun. It can, the act of making money, accumulating wealth, can be fun, and it can make you happy. But we were believed to think a lie, that it's not going to make us happy, right? But deep down inside, we know it will. How do we know this? Because we love playing Monopoly. So I use the universal truth to debunk that myth. But the only reason why I know that is because I've experienced it. I'm like, I said my whole life, I don't care about money. Making money is not happy, blah, blah, blah. Until I actually started making money and I saw my bank account grow. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is kind of exciting. You understand what I mean? Even if I don't care about the money, just the game of making more money in itself was fun.
Okay.
And then what I did was, okay, where else did I feel this same feeling? Oh, of course, when I play Monopoly.
So if I think about the example that I have experience with, sometimes I see those older people that are retired, and they're traveling around. So I can see them if I travel somewhere or if they come to Belgrade. And they look like, they look old, and like they are into, I don't know, walking around, going to different museums. So they have all the time in the world for themselves. So I also heard, and people kind of admire those people, and they, especially if they're so busy, they wish when that time will come that they don't have any obligation. They will finish their college, get married, have kids. They are grown up, live their own life, and now it's time for me. So they kind of fantasize about that time. So the myth there, I think, is when I have more time, I will do it. And this kind of example of this old people wandering around with all free time. But actually, those people that are wandering around, this is not, I think, for most of them, this is not that they are doing just after they retire. They're kind of, most of them are active during their life, and this is natural that now they have more time. But those people that have never been into those trips, into like to enjoy, to gather with people, to connect, when they are old, they are more complaining about weather, about their knees, where they need, when they need to go to the doctor, to complain about their neighbors. So they sit and they have another problems, but they only have more time to complain. So the truth is that if you're waiting for the better time, time is not a problem. The problem is that you have never been taught how to live a satisfying life.
That is a myth truth, but it's not a myth truth sandwich. Because there's nothing about that that makes me go like, oh, of course. Do you know what I mean? I just have to choose to believe that that's true. You're basically saying that, oh, trust me, what I'm saying is true. Believe me. That's what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's harder for me to believe that because I basically have to trust you, right?
So I would need to back up with some statistics if I, for example,
Well, you need to
some...
back it up with the universal truth that I agree with. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, like
Yeah, I hear you.
That's something that you can say. Probably you can try to explain, but it's really hard to turn that into a myth truth sandwich. And probably because you yourself haven't experienced it. This is why you experiencing it yourself is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you experience it, you know what that feels like. The moment when you stop saying, I'll do this when I have time, I'll do this when, like something like that. The moment you experience it. So here's a better way I would do it, right? People say that, oh, I'll I'll um I'll go in all my I'll work hard and go in, go full in once I figure out what my business is gonna be. Or once I know exactly what my brand is about, I'll post content every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the myth that people believe in. Right? You need to have a plan before you move forward. Right? That's like you need to come up with a plan before you take action or something like that. Right? But the but here's the truth. Here's the universe. That's the conventional truth. Here's the universal truth. Right? Most people are not ready to have a baby when they get pregnant. It's having the baby that makes them ready to be a parent.
Okay.
Does that resonate? Or something similar to that, right? Most people are not like most people don't know anything about sex until they have sex. Does that mean they have to learn everything about it before they have sex? No. Once you start having sex, then you learn, right? Once you have a kid, that's when you become a parent, and you like that's why people have life-changing moment once they see their child being born, because now, holy shit, I have this responsibility now, and I have to grow up and become more mature, become an adult, actually like provide for their kid, right? But most people are immature until that moment when they're forced to because they had a kid, right? Most people don't know how to. Most people don't know how to do, you know, be an adult and go to a job and do the. Most people learn on the job. You're never ready for the job, but once you start working there, then you become ready because you're forced to. Most people are not ready for high school. Once they go into high school, they learn how to become part of high school, right? So these are some universal truths that basically shows you that you can't prepare for something. You gotta do it first and then you'll learn. Do you understand what I mean? So I gave you some universal truth examples of, and then that's kind of what starting social media is like. It's kind of like what
Mm-hmm.
starting a business is like. You just kind of have to jump in first, and then you'll figure it out. Like waiting to figure out your content plan before you start making content is like waiting to figure out how sex works before you have sex.
I mean, okay. Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Or waiting to figure out like, okay, like amputees, right? People who lost their legs in the war.
Mm-hmm.
Like waiting to figure out how to live without legs. So that you lose your legs and then you figure it out. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like
Okay.
the metaphor I would use for. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I mean? But the reason why that works is I think one, it's because it's a universal truth that everyone will agree with. When I say something like nobody's ready for a kid until they become pregnant, or nobody's ready to, you know, nobody's ready to be live life as a single person until they get dumped and they become single. Then they'll figure it
Mm-hmm.
out. People are like, oh, I don't know how I can live without her. Well, once you lose her, you'll figure it out. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't prepare for it, and that you don't prepare, and it's the same thing for content.
Okay. So, can I give another example?
Yeah.
So, the myth.
That second one works though. The one you right. What was the
Mm-hmm.
example you gave?
Um, about time. Just um, yeah. So when I have more time, I will do it.
Oh, I see what you. Yeah, that's a little bit different, I guess. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
little bit different.
Do you have another suggestion?
Mm, no, I mean it's really hard to turn that into a carousel because it's such a complex concept, in my opinion. And it's like I haven't I guess fully experienced it yet. Because like somewhat it's related to this, right? Um, you know, we think that, oh, once I have however much money in the bank, I'll be happy, right? Once I
Mm-hmm.
reach this point, then I'll be happy, right? But there's probably something else you said that about before. Like for example, like if I for me, if I just had this camera, then I'll be happy. Like that'll make me so happy. But
Mm-hmm.
then once I got that camera, quickly it didn't make me happy, right? So what makes you think that if you have this much money, it's gonna make you happy? Well, for a little bit, but then like when Gigi got that red dress, it was like the happiest day of her life, and she's never been that happy since then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if getting that red dress was the happiest day of your life? What makes you think that getting this other thing is gonna make you that happy, right? Because at one point in your life you thought getting that red dress is gonna make you happy, but now you're unhappy again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So according to that logic, you
Um,
can break a myth like that.
Okay, I guess that I have like personal experience with these things because I have stories that can accompany this myth, and but I don't know how to use it if I can. Um, for example, I was watching one movie, and the guy was in prison reading a book, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous on this guy. He was in prison reading book freely, having all the day for himself. So this is something that I kind
Yeah,
of
I know what you mean. But the thing is,
desire.
the problem there is that
Mhm.
the problem is there's no myth around that. Because I would actually argue that if you talk to most people, I feel like there's like a common narrative going around that says like, oh, work isn't everything. Money isn't important. Like you gotta, you know,
Mhm.
you gotta live life, you gotta
I'm
work life balance. Like that is the common narrative. That is the myth. It's the conventional truth.
Yeah, but there is,
And that's why it
yes,
doesn't work.
I just want to say something. So people are saying so many things. When I go
Mhm.
on TikTok, I see people having their daily routine, like I put this cream and then that cream and la 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 la. So if I'm going to do like everything to for like self-care, I will need the whole day for that. So people are saying so many
I know,
things
but
about
there are things that
self-care,
that's
but
why
they don't do
it's
it.
but that's why it's so important for you to understand what most people think. And I think this is where a lot of people get caught up is that they think that just because they hear it all the time, they think that because they think the one way, they think that everyone else also thinks that way.
Okay. So maybe
But it's
we
not
need
true. Like maybe you think that the narrative is that you got to work hard so that you can save money and then later on you can retire. Maybe that's what you think is the narrative. Maybe that's what you
Mhm.
think everybody's saying. But from
Okay.
where I'm seeing it, I don't see anybody say that actually. Actually, when Gary Vee says that, or somebody's like say that, and you read the comments, everybody talks shit about like when I said the thing where I said, "Oh, I always work my ass off," and then like my boss always gave me a raise. When I said that in the comments, people talk shit about it. They're like, "This is a sure way to get exploited. You shouldn't work your ass off." So obviously, that is not the narrative.
Okay.
Most people are not saying that. Most people are actually
So
saying the
we
opposite. Like work life
then
balance. You gotta enjoy your
okay.
life. Like that's what most people are saying.
Well, this is good then because now my starting point, if my
Well, it's
starting
not
point
good.
is wrong, it's good because now I know where I need help. Uh, what if I, for example, have like myth bank and I see what is the narrative of society in my like time right now. So maybe this will be
But it
helpful
also
because
changes, right? Because if you were to say, like, if you talked to me 15 years ago, I
yeah,
would have
of
said
course.
everybody's talking about hustle culture, hustle, hustle, hustle. Like, but now the narrative's the opposite. Everybody's talking about work life balance and
Mm-hmm.
how, and I'm like, both are bullshit, by the way. Do you know what I mean? Because I now I see so many people using the work life balance as an excuse to be lazy. Do you understand what I mean?
No.
Like I see people that are like, oh yeah, but work isn't everything, and they literally work like 20 hours a week. And I'm like, you're never gonna build a business like how many people come to me and ask me for advice and they're like, oh, how do I build my business? Blah, blah, blah. And I look at their life and they're like on Netflix, going on social media, going on vacation. I'm like, well, you're never gonna build a business like that. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Well, but I
So
think it's not about laziness. It's about unrealistic goals then. I'm
yeah,
totally fine if somebody wants to work 20 hours a week and do whatever with what they want with their life.
but I'm just saying,
This is not a problem.
the reason why they have that problem is because they hear people like Ariana Huffington, who's super successful, talking about work life balance. They see all these successful talking about work life balance and blah, blah, blah. So they're confusing that, okay, I can be successful and I can have work life balance too. But what they don't realize is that working 20 hours a week and fucking going on vacation and traveling, doing all these things, that's not work-life balance. That's just you being lazy. Like work-life balance means you're still working you're still working hard.
Yeah.
And then you're still living your life. That's the work-life balance, right? And then and now the narrative has gone too far one way. And I think, and that's the whole thing that I'm trying to break here, is that whenever somebody says some conventional truth like that, like Ariana Huffington, work-life balance, it's about, not everything is about work, blah, blah, blah. That's not helping some people. It's actually not helping most people, because most people don't understand what that means. It's like I was coaching this one guy, and me talking about like he's like playing video games too much. I'm like, you gotta stop playing video games. And I was like, just minimize to the minimum. And then he's like, oh, I'm still playing 3 hours a day. I'm like, what? Like his entire idea of work-life balance is so skewed. I feel like most kids these days, their idea of hard work is so skewed. They don't really know what hard work really means. So what they're actually doing is they're being lazy and they're calling it work-life balance. Do you understand what I mean?
Okay, I hear you. I see. Okay.
So I think for you, you should really try to come up with like a myth truth that you've debunked yourself, that you personally debunked in your own life.
I'll think about it, but I don't have like a clear
most people
guidance
don't.
Where
and
to
it's the
search.
problem. Like, you really think that the reason why I'm able to make those content is because I just know how to word things a certain way? Or do you think the reason why I know how to make those content is because I've actually lived it and I've experienced it and I've actually learned those things in real life and applied them in my real life?
I believe that you are applying them in the real life. And I also believe that that is not enough, because you know how to extract something, how to use it. And I don't. But I still have my lessons that I probably learned because, through time, I guess. I hope that I'm evolving, but I'm not aware of the in a way that you are. So just to ask you,
so that's the first thing.
Do you hear the noise or not?
No, I don't hear
okay
anything.
Because it's like a crowd, mass of people passing by my building and they're yelling, so you don't hear
I don't
it.
hear.
Cool. Okay.
Like, for example, the reason why I knew that chasing money can make you happy is because I've been through it. And then when I went through it, I was like, oh, this is revolutionary. Because I always thought chasing money and making money shouldn't make me happy. But it actually does make me happy. It is actually fun. What's going on here, right? So I've experienced it myself, but most people haven't experienced it. So what they do is they go around living life as if I need to find that one thing that I'm passionate about, because otherwise my life is going to be miserable. When the reality is not that at all. You could be fucking working in McDonald's and still have an amazing life. Do you understand what I mean? You can be working as a cobbler, just making shoes, and have an amazing life. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can still have an amazing life. You can still be successful in that field, and you can still be super passionate about it. I know that because I've experienced it. I've experienced having boring jobs and being exceptional in it and finding it fun and then being successful at it. You know what I mean? So because I've experienced it.
My question for you, can I ask you something? So how did you connect? You've been when you chased money, so you saw like as
never
you're
chase
having
money.
more money, yeah, as you saw that you are having more money, that it's kind of it's fun game to see. How did you connect that to Monopoly?
Well, and that's where the dot connecting comes, right? It's
Yeah.
just, I feel like a lot of the reasons why people don't change their life or learn the lesson and then like change their life based on the lesson they learn is because they might even learn the lesson, but they don't even go back and think about it. So what I did was when that started happening, like, and it was this week's whole assignment, right? I was like, when you notice something interesting, make a note of it and try to connect the dot to something else, right? So for me, when that happened and I see like, oh my gosh, like for example, like we raised our rates and then I saw our bank accounts going up faster, right? Or something like we changed our process from this process to this process. And 3 months later, I can see that our bank account is growing even faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And when I make a wrong mistake, then our bank account slows down. Like I saw the correlation between those two, and I was like, oh, this is exciting. I was like, oh, when I
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, this feels like a game almost, right? And that's when I realized it's like, oh, actually, it's kind of a lot like Monopoly. It's similar to Monopoly, but I had to actually sit and reflect
Mm-hmm.
and go and connect the dot and do this exercise that we're doing at Night Owl Nation that goes, what does this feel like? And you know how when we do the connecting the dot assignment, I always say,
Mm-hmm.
what did that feel like? What's another scenario that it feels like, right? And a lot of people are not doing that. But it's so here's the thing. It's so, to me, the most frustrating thing is this. I'm literally giving everybody the answers and I'm giving them the opportunity to actually practice this on a weekly basis by giving them exercise and practice it. And everybody's coming to me like, son, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? Well, I'm giving you the fucking answers right now, but nobody's fucking doing it because they think that this is unnecessary. They think that reflecting on something that happened to you and connecting the dot between that and something else and trying to see, okay, what was the mistake that I'm making so that in the future I see the truth and I can change my ways and better my life, better my business, better everything that I'm doing. I'm literally teaching them how to do it step by step, but nobody's doing it. And they're going like, how do I come up with the myth truth sandwich? Well, you know how? By living it. And how you live it is by doing what I'm telling you to do. Is when something happens to you, don't just ignore it. Sit, try to think about what that feels like, and then try to connect the dot to something else, and do that again and again and again. I mean, like now I feel like I'm at a point where I don't even have to sit and think about it. It's just it just automatically occurs to me. Like when I see somebody, when I play a Monopoly, like right now, if I play at a Monopoly, that's actually probably what happened. I was playing Monopoly with friends one day, and I was like, oh, this feels a lot like this, right?
Okay.
So what I would say is that's why I think I said when you watch a TV show, when you watch people, when you're in a situation, pay attention to it. Like this week, as you're living life, don't try to go back and try to connect the dot in the past. Try to connect the dot live in person.
So what I'm seeing so far right now in my life, because I was noticing things, I see when something is some situation lifts up some thoughts about, oh, what happened right now. So this is a moment where when I sit a little bit there, I can maybe connect that emotion to some other emotion similar. But coming to the myth or to the lesson, it's kind of hard. I can give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
So a few days ago, I was driving car next to my office. It's one-way street. So, but one lady was coming like in the opposite direction. And I don't know what problem she has, if she's an addict or looks a little bit like a homeless person. And some people are, you know, a little bit not afraid of her, but I've heard some stories. So I noticed her, and I was a little bit too focused on that side of the road because it's one-way street. It's a little bit narrow. There is enough space, but I was so focused on her if something might happen there that I wasn't paying attention to actually the right side of the street. So I kicked a little bit the edge of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
and put back on the street. So I was thinking, and the lady just passed by me. She didn't do anything. She was just walking like a regular walk, nothing spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I was so focused on a problem that I haven't seen. So the problem that wasn't there, but I projected the problem that I wasn't actually focused on the right problem, which is the other side of the street, the sidewalk. So this is where I sit on a little bit. And if I connect the emotion, so I have another memory of one basketball game where one guy was so focused to defend the, how do you call it?
The basket.
The basket, yeah. So the guy actually passed the ball around his waist. So he did like this. I don't know if you can imagine what he did. And this guy didn't even see the ball. He was like, where's the ball? Where's the ball? Because he was so focused on protecting the basket to see actually what is happening around him.
So that's a universal truth, right? Sometimes like we get distracted by something that's loud or something that's trickery.
Yeah.
That we lose focus of the real problem, or we lose focus of reality because of some sort of I mean, because it's like it's how people do magic tricks too, right? They make you focus in here, and while with this other hand, they're switching something else, and that's
Yeah.
how people fall for magic. It's because like, you ever seen that video where like there's people dancing or something like that, and then at the end of the video, they ask you like, "Did you see the gorilla?"
Oh,
And
yeah.
and most people don't see the gorilla. And then
Mm-hmm.
later on, when they go back and play, they're like, "Oh shit, how did I miss that?" Right? It's because our attention is focused on one thing, and so that's a universal truth. What you just said, it's something that if you explain it, most people will understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can even use that gorilla video as an example. It's like sometimes when we're so focused on one thing, we lose vision of the reality or something like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now, is this something that you personally experienced, and based on that, you've changed something in your life in order to account for that?
I mean, it's based on experience 2 days ago, so I hope I
Mm-hmm.
learned the lesson.
But you've experienced this before, obviously.
Of
You've seen
course.
the gorilla one. You've obviously this this universal truth. So did
Yeah.
you, based on this, did you fix anything in your life? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Has something like this has affected you in your life before? Obviously, it did when you almost got into an accident. But some before, has it ever gotten you into?
Mm, yes. I mean, into some risky situations that maybe I could avoid. I don't know if it's the similar example. But I was too focused to, one time I was too focused to come to the exam, and the streets were closed, people were protesting. I couldn't find a way to come there on time, so I asked random person on a bike to
Take you there.
yeah, to come there. And I've never been on a motorcycle before, so this was my first time, and the busy streets, so crowded. Like, this
I
is
know, but how does
a,
that relate to how does that relate to being distracted by something small that's not important, that you make a decision on something that's
yeah,
big, and
yeah, this is
like
not it.
you're actually bending reality in order
Yeah,
to accommodate
yeah,
for a small untruth something, right? Like that lady, right?
yeah.
What does that feel like? Okay, I'll give you one. So this is why it's so important for you to. So let's see how I was able to reach this, and it's like the thing that came to me immediately, right? Almost. So when I see that monkey video, or like a card trick, or the
Mm-hmm.
lady, and you almost like hitting the bump. When I hear those case scenario, those universal truth, the immediate feeling that I get is this. Um, like, when you get like 50 positive comments, and then you get 2 negative comments, that we
Mm-hmm.
focus so much on those 2 negative comments that that stops us from actually saying this again, which is
How did you
completely
come to
crazy, right?
this? How did you come to this?
Because that's what it feels like. It feels like, that small group leader chat, right? When
Mm-hmm.
those few people were complaining about points and blah 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 blah, like, now all of a sudden, like, everybody's going like, oh my gosh, the points is terrible, blah blah blah, without, it's because of a few minority of people that are being loud,
Mm-hmm.
we're about to change everything. But the reality is, when I actually hear the members, a lot of the members actually like the point system, right? And it was just a few loud minority that were complaining about it. But that's how our society works, right? People are like, oh, I don't want to say this because I don't want to get canceled. But like, you mean like Joe Rogan? Like, Joe Rogan is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest number one podcast in the world. Well, when you say canceled, you actually, what you mean is few loud minority of people being loud about it, when the rest of the world doesn't feel that way at all. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I mean? So a lot of times what we do is we change the entire direction of our company. We change the direction of our thing, or we censor ourselves just because a few people were loud. But that few people that are loud is like that woman in the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that guy who's distracting, right? Those few minorities are just distractions. It doesn't mean it's true. But we act as if it's true in life. And we'll say, I could never say that again, because this conversation does continue here, but only for our Night Owl Nation members. If you'd like to hear the full conversation, click the link in the description and join us at nightowlnation.com.